What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, let's step back in time and discover 5 historic pubs in the city of London. When we react to so many videos, especially of expats going to the UK, all you hear, on every single one of them, you hear them talk about British pub culture, pub culture, pub culture, pub culture. And so now we get to look at 5 historic pubs. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, don't forget to smash subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Also, if you would like to support this channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is get that little join button, a quick tap, and receive your exclusive benefits. But let's get right to it.
Hello, and thanks for stopping by. I don't know about you, but I reckon it's high time we explored another set of London's pubs.
Let's do it.
The ones we'll be visiting in this episode all lie within the capital's oldest area, the historic Square Mile.
Look at that building,
and
bro.
there are 2 in particular, which, by far, have been the most requested by viewers since I began this series.
The Black Friar.
So, without any further ado, let's go and see what we can find.
Let's do it. The Old Mitre, is that how you say it? Mitre or Mitre?
For those who are unfamiliar with it, the Old Mitre is arguably one of the trickiest pubs to find in London, for it lies burrowed away in the middle of Ely Court, a discreet alley which runs between Ely Place and the Hatton Garden Jewellery Quarter.
So it's snuck away off in the alley.
Ely Court and Ely Place take their names from Ely in Cambridgeshire. The reason being that, for nearly 500 years, between 1290 and 1772, this area was home to a palace owned by the Bishops of Ely, a complex which they used as their Grand London residence.
That cathedral is insanely amazing, insanely
As
beautiful.
such, this patch of land, in a manner similar to a diplomatic embassy, was considered to be part of Cambridgeshire itself. In 1531, Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon attended a lavish banquet here, which lasted for 5 days. And the palace is mentioned in Shakespeare's Richard III, when Richard says to the bishop, "My lord of Ely, when I was last in Holborn, I saw good strawberries in your garden there. I do beseech you, send for some of them." Although Ely Palace has long since been swept away, one significant part remains: the beautiful St Ethelreda's Church, which, having been built in 1290, happens to be a rare survivor of the Great Fire of London. The Old Mitre pub is directly related to the history of Ely Palace, as it was first built in 1546 to specifically cater for the many servants employed by the bishops.
1546 is insane. To be that, it is almost almost 500 years old. That is how old this pub is, and it is still standing and alive today. If that's not history, I don't know what is. And you know why it's on Ely Place or Ely Street, or because of the Ely Palace that stood in place for 500 years. And you saw the Ely Cathedral, which was absolutely stunning. But this is incredible.
And its name, of course, is a reference to the headgear worn by those men of the cloth. As it appears today, the Old Mitre dates from the 1770s, having been rebuilt when the neighbouring palace was demolished, although extensive remodelling was carried out in the 1920s and 30s.
Okay, got you.
The other road flanking Ely Court, Hatton Garden, is named after Sir Christopher Hatton, who was a favourite of Queen Elizabeth I, so much so that she bypassed the Bishops of Ely in order to grant Hatton a lease of land here.
Dang.
A relic related to their relationship can be viewed inside the Old Mitre itself. It's this old cherry tree stump, which is displayed within a custom-made cabinet. It's claimed this tree was originally planted as a marker to denote the boundary between the bishop's land and the plot belonging to Christopher Hatton.
Are you
And according to
serious?
legend, Elizabeth I once danced around this tree with Hatton. There's no way of proving this, of course, but it
course.
makes for a nice story, doesn't it?
That's pretty awesome. It does. That's pretty incredible.
In 2002, a BBC radio dramatisation of P.G. Woodhouse's Meet Mr. Mulliner, narrated by Richard Griffiths, was recorded on location here, and you can see the old mitre in Guy Ritchie's 2000 film Snatch, the pub being a favourite haunt of the dodgy diamond dealer Doug the Head, who was played by Mike Reed.
I love it so freaking much. Hey, shout out to the old mitre. The backstory and history of it is absolutely amazing. The fact that cherry stump was supposed to separate that land between the bishop and the one that Queen Elizabeth had given land to and bypassed the bishops because that man was one of her favorites. I don't know, it's just a really cool history, and then knowing like it's used in like movies and stuff. So of course I want you guys to comment down below how many of you have been to Mitre pub, and how was it? Did you enjoy it? Was it absolutely awesome? Was it disappointing? Talk to me. The old Dr. Butler's Head.
From Doug the Head, we now move on to the old Dr. Butler's Head, which, like the old mitre, isn't the easiest of places to track down.
Really?
It's tucked away on Masons Avenue, which runs between Coleman Street and Basinghall Street, just across from the Guildhall.
Dang, that is gorgeous.
The old Dr. Butler's Head is the sole survivor of what was essentially an early pub chain, all of which were established to sell a particular type of medicinal ale.
Best bitter master.
The man who developed this brew was the fellow shown on the sign, Dr. William Butler, who was something of a charlatan. Born in Ipswich in 1535, William Butler attended Peterhouse College, Cambridge, and after graduating was granted a licence to work as a physician, which, even by 16th century standards, was a tad strange, because he hadn't actually studied medicine. Despite being completely unqualified, Butler...
How you? Nah, we can't be giving people certifications that ain't got the qualifications. That's crazy work and titles that they ain't earned.
Listen. Despite being completely unqualified, Butler set up an apothecary shop in Cambridge, where records mention that he employed an old maid named Nell, who apparently was entrusted to fetch Butler home from the tavern every night, the bogus doctor having a reputation for being a very heavy drinker.
Of course.
Despite these flaws, the dubious quack made a name for himself in 1603 when he was called upon to treat a Cambridge clergyman who'd fallen into a deep coma after indulging in too much opium.
Oh.
Butler's solution was unorthodox to say the least. He had a cow slaughtered and then promptly stuffed his patient into the cow's warm belly. By some miracle, or maybe the opium was just wearing off, the clergyman came to, which must have been pretty alarming for him, considering he was surrounded by squelchy cow's innards.
Yeah, that's pretty disgusting.
News of this sensation reached King James I, who was so impressed, he promptly appointed Dr. Butler as a physician to his court.
Oh my
As such,
God.
Dr. Butler, who was now well into his 60s, moved to London, and once in the city, he continued to prescribe all manner of ludicrous cures. These included dousing plague victims in ice-cold water, throwing a man suffering from fever into the Thames, and for those suffering from epilepsy, firing a brace of pistols close to the patient's face, his theory being that this would scare the seizures out of them.
Nah, bro, his theory being it would scare the seizures out of them. He was absolutely ridiculous. This man was bonkers, and the fact that back then a man this bonkers could have gotten the title of doctor is a little bit scary. It's a little bit concerning. This man was ODing from opium and he put him inside a cow's belly. Slaughtered the cow to put him inside, and the opium just wore off. But they thought this man had healed him by putting him inside the cow's belly. Nah, this is wild. Oh my.
At this point, Dr. Butler had also concocted his own alcoholic drink, Butler's Purging Ale, which, laced with goodness knows what, he marketed as the perfect cure for gastric problems.
Of course he did.
Rather than selling this potion from an apothecary store, Butler figured it would retail better in taverns, and so he set up a chain of pubs to do just that. The old Dr. Butlers Head on Mason's Avenue is the last surviving example of this early 17th century franchise. There's been a tavern here since 1610. Butler purchased it for his own use in 1616, and as you can probably guess, that incarnation was later destroyed in the Great Fire of London. As it stands today, the pub dates from the Victorian era, and no, sadly, Dr. Butler's Purging Ale is no longer available on tap.
Bro, this is crazy. London, UK. This is absolutely bonkers. How many of you guys have been here? I can't believe he got up to that higher status just from the most ludicrous, absurd cures that he could think of, bro. He throwing people in the Thames and the river. He's shooting guns by epileptic's head. Bro, he's pouring ice cold water on Black Death or Black Plague victims. He's I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. And people were impressed by him. I'm mind blown. I'm truly. How much of you guys have been there though? How was it? If you've been there, how was the experience? Ye old London.
Located just moments away from St Paul's Cathedral, the Old London on Ludgate Hill is a pub which thousands of people, both tourists and Londoners alike, pass by every day.
Perfect.
There's been a pub here since 1749, and prior to that, you could still pop by for a drink, as the first business based at this address was a coffee house, the London Coffee House as it was known, which opened in 1731. In the 18th century, coffee houses were popular with the city's businessmen, who'd congregate in them to conduct their various dealings, and over time, this led each establishment to become associated with a specific profession. In the case of the London Coffee House, this was publishing and copyright law, most likely because nearby St Paul's Churchyard was known for its booksellers. Despite being geared towards caffeine, beer, rum, brandy and punch were all available too at the London Coffee House, and during lengthy trials at the nearby Old Bailey, the establishment was used as the de facto hotel for accommodating juries.
Dang,
when the London Coffee House was transformed into a tavern, it was renamed the Old London Coffee House. Over time, the coffee part was dropped, resulting in its current title, the Old London. In more recent times, the pub underwent a brief rebranding under a rather different name, the Bell, Book and Candle, which apparently are the three items used by a priest during an exorcism.
The Bell, Book
The Old
and
London
Candle.
Coffee House makes an appearance in Charles Dickens' novel Little Dorrit, when in chapter 3 of the first book, we're told that, on a gloomy, close and stale Sunday, Arthur Clenham sat in the window of a coffee house on Ludgate Hill, counting one of the neighbouring bells.
Dang.
The bell Dickens refers to was no doubt that of St Martin's Ludgate, which is sited right next door.
Of course it is.
This church is one of Sir Christopher Wren's many masterpieces. Just look at the spire, it's incredible. And inside, you can see one of St Martin's old bells on display. Who knows, maybe this was the very same one which Arthur Clenham could hear clanging.
Could have been.
In the rush to admire St Paul's though, most people hurry past this church without even giving it a second glance, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
So if you happen to be in the area, be sure to show St Martin's a bit of love.
If I ever get the chance to go. That was a cool bar with a great backstory of being a coffee house previously, but being turned into a bar later. So it's a lot of ye old. You put that at in front of a lot of stuff, I guess, back in the days of British history. Ye old Watley.
Close to the Old London, on the opposite side of St Paul's Cathedral, you'll find the Old Watling.
Bro.
This pub takes its name from the road upon which it stands, Watling Street, which was one of the most important highways in Roman Britain, a route which ran from Dover up towards London, then on to St Albans and Wroxeter. It's for this reason that the pub's sign features a centurion's helmet. That said though, the Watling Street seen here, well, it isn't actually part of the old Roman road. Although much of Watling Street still survives today in a modern form, most notably as the A2 and A5 roads, its route through central London is somewhat fragmented. You can see its straight, distinctive Roman line running south of the Thames along the Old Kent Road, and then north through Maida Vale and along Edgware Road, but here, in the square mile, the path has been lost, although it's no doubt passed very close to this spot, hence this short stretch of street adopting its name. That's not to say though that the City of London's Watling Street lacks history. It's still very old indeed, and is believed to have been laid out shortly after Alfred the Great re-established the city in 886 AD. As for the pub, well, that's had a long life too. There's been one here since at least 1663. That early embodiment of the old Watling didn't survive very long though. No prizes for guessing, it was wiped out in the Great Fire of London.
Of course.
In the wake of the blaze...
So how much of London did that old fire destroy, and like how much of London had to be rebuilt due to that big fire of London? Like, did it destroy almost all of London, or... Because it seems like so much had to be rebuilt due to this fire.
It was one of the very first buildings to be reconstructed, this being done at the behest of Sir Christopher Wren, who, whilst preparing the ground for the rebuild of nearby St Paul's Cathedral, figured his workers would need a place where they could obtain food and drink.
Good point. That's a good... Hey, that's smart.
It's also believed that a room on the upper floor was used as an office by Wren, where plans for the mighty cathedral were drawn up and meticulously reviewed.
That's a gorgeous cathedral.
Wren's version of the old Watling was cobbled together using second-hand ship's timbers, which were cheap and easy to obtain. And the current building, which suffered heavy damage during the Blitz, dates from around the turn of the 20th century.
It's World War II.
By the way, this wasn't the only pub Christopher Wren had built for his men. The old Watling has a cousin, the Old Bell, which stands at the eastern end of Fleet Street, and was mainly used by builders working on the beautiful St Bride's Church.
Dang.
What a great employer he must have been.
Yeah. Oh, everything. So that's what we got for the old Watling. Again, I need y'all comment section. How was your experience there? If you have ever been there, have you wanted to go there and haven't gotten the opportunity? Have you been disappointed? And now this was gonna take a little bit more time than the other one. So this one must be the most historic one, I assume. The Blackfriar Queen Victoria Street. I'm already liking the look of it from the front, bro.
Like the Old Mitre, the Blackfriar is a pub which has been requested many times by viewers, so I think it's about time we delved in. Compared to the other pubs we've seen in this video, the Blackfriar is relatively young. The first inn to appear here was built in 1875.
Oh wow!
The ground on which it stands was once the site of a medieval friary, belonging to the Dominican order known as the Blackfriars, who was so named because the friars wore black cloaks.
Oh.
The friary was a fair size, containing a hall, library, stables, gardens and so on. Its western edge, where the pub now stands, bordered the River Fleet, which now flows underground beneath New Bridge Street.
Okay.
The friary has long since vanished. It was dissolved by Henry VIII, although you can still see one tiny fragment of it. This surviving section of wall, which sits quietly by in the square known as Island Yard.
That's so freaking cool.
Returning to the Blackfriar pub then, well, as mentioned a moment ago, it's first opened in 1875.
Okay.
The building was designed in this distinctive wedge shape to help it slot into this small plot of land, and it's squeezed against a railway line, which now carries trains between the Blackfriars and City Thames Link stations.
I love that.
The tracks are so close, in fact, that if you're in the pub, you'll hear, and feel, the trains frequently rumbling past.
Oh wow.
The Blackfriar as it appears today is the result of a complete rebuild, which was conducted at the start of the 20th century, after being acquired by a landlord named William Petit. William had plenty of cash to spend, and so spared no expense in having his new business made to look as lavish as possible.
Love that.
The work was carried out in 1905, an era when the Art Nouveau period was at its height, and as such, that's the distinctive style in which the pub was designed. The architect was Herbert Fuller Clark. You can see another of his buildings at 40 Foley Street over in the West End.
Ooh.
Whilst the sculptor who created the many fancy reliefs and adornments was Henry Poole, an artist who, years later in World War I, would go on to develop camouflage techniques for the army.
Really? I do love these sculptures. Like that's really pretty cool. It's just so much history, not only in London but in the UK, in the country itself. There's so much history just in this country that we don't have in the US. That it's kind of really cool to see architecture and sculptures and all of this from back then. Cool.
Fragments of other sculptures made by Henry are now displayed on Milford Lane, just across from St Clement Danes RAF Church. As you can see, with the Blackfriar, Herbert and Henry created not only a pub, but an absolute work of art.
Yeah.
The detail is, to be frank, exquisite. I've been here many times over the years, but I'm always discovering new quirks, such as this friar sucking into a tasty looking pie, or this pointy-eared fellow who seems to resemble Yoda from Star Wars.
A little bit.
Along with the art reliefs, there are also various phrases dotted around for you to ponder over your pint, including wisdom is rare, silence is golden, and haste is slow.
Oh.
The only feature
Wisdom
which was
is rare, silence is golden, and haste is slow. Love all three of those.
part of Herbert and Henry's design is the prominent statue of the Blackfriar perched at the front. He's a relatively recent addition, having been added in around 1983. The Blackfriar has appeared in several films over the years, most notably the 1978 version of Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep, and Morris, a 1987 film based on an Ian Forster novel. It's utterly insane to think now, but for most of the 1960s, this gorgeous pub faced the looming threat of demolition. Back then, the area around Blackfriars was seen as stagnant and in dire need of development, it's being defined by old warehouses and a huge weed-strewn bomb site, which served as a car park. In the early 60s, an underpass had been ploughed through Puddle Dock, soon after which plans were drawn up to build another wide road along the path of Carter Lane in order to relieve traffic on Ludgate Hill. It would seem it was this proposed road which posed the main threat to the pub, as it would have to be knocked down to make way for it.
Oh.
Even as late as 1971, the threat remained, leading the London Illustrated News to publish an article in which it was stated the loss of the Blackfriar would be nothing short of tragic.
Gotta put that road somewhere else.
Thankfully, two people with clout stepped in. Sir John Betjeman, who was a regular at the pub and had successfully campaigned to save St Pancras Station from a similar fate, and Rain Spencer, also known as Lady Dartmouth, Princess Diana's stepmother, who worked in politics and took a keen interest in the preservation of historical sites.
I love that they didn't.
Between them, Sir John Betjeman and Lady Dartmouth fought to have the Blackfriar saved, and it's thanks to them that this legendary pub remains standing and very much popular today.
Shout out to the both of them because you can't just tear down history. I know that you do have to progress and you do have to take those steps into the future. You do have to innovate. You have to modernize, and that's the way of the world. But some things you just gotta hold on to as long as you can. This is history. You can't just destroy it.
So, if you get the chance to have a drink in here, be sure to raise a glass to them. Thanks so much.
That was really freaking awesome. Shout out Rob's London. That was cool to kind of see these 5 historic pubs. I'm glad they saved the Blackfriar. Y'all let me know, have you been to any of these? Have you been to all of these? What was your experience at these? I think it's really cool just kind of seeing the history of each of these pubs and when they were made and how they were rebuilt or remodeled or what time periods. All and then just like who they were like named after. Oh, that's really cool. That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the next one. I'll see you guys next time.